Yeah, so
Yeah, she told me. Yeah, she told me.
now,
And I told her she doesn't love me.
yeah,
No, it's fine, it's fine, it's
yeah,
fine.
I just wasn't sure. And either I can say, was she introducing you or else I...
No, she was just saying what the panel
Yeah,
was
right,
and everything, and then you introduced the moderator.
Yeah, which was, either I could do it or I just...
You did it. Warm it up. All right, appreciate it.
You know, I don't want you guys to to feel let down.
Good morning, everyone. We're about at that 5-minute warning, so if you need to go to the ladies' room, the men's room, A room, get your coffee, and get yourself situated, please do so. Also, a reminder, please turn your phones off, put them on vibrate, and we'll start shortly. Thank you.
Did you meet that gentleman over there?
I did. He told me that Jody Daniels wasn't
Yeah,
here.
he's gonna kind of bring you in.
Right, and so, but I told him that you know first because
Yeah.
you know.
Not me.
Certain babies got issues.
Yeah,
They're in the wrong season. That's what he has right there. We took pictures of him. I have a question. Speak like a little. Yes, sir. I have a question about equipment readiness.
Well, it's great that we have the...
I have a mirror absence. I'll just point it right back into you. Can you answer this, sir?
Sir, how do you feel about that?
Sir, how do you feel?
General, take your seat.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. I'm Mark Wolf with the Association of U.S. Army. On behalf of General Brown, we appreciate everybody being here and participating in our annual meeting. It's important for the Army and the Army Reserve as a forum to get the word out and your messages out. Welcome to the Command Sergeant Major of the Army Reserve Seminar, where they're going to be covering leveraging innovation and to build readiness. At this time, I'll introduce Sergeant Major Tolbert, who will be our moderator. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. It's like church. It's real quiet in here. It's real quiet. I feel like, you're not on punishment, so we're going to have a good time today, right? And so, welcome to United States Army Reserve Command Sergeant Major panel. It's a discussion, which means that they talk, you talk, we all collaborate, and we speak with one another. And Command Sergeant Major Betty, he serves as our senior enlisted advisor to the Chief of the Army Reserve, and he provides invaluable guidance on all matters affecting our soldiers, their families, and the readiness of the force. With decades of service, CSM Betty has dedicated his career to ensuring that the Army Reserve remains a highly trained, adaptable, and combat-ready force. Under his leadership, the Army Reserve continues to focus on investing in our soldiers and their families, developing policies that enhance readiness and fostering innovation across the force. Command Sergeant Major Sherry Turner. She's the Senior Enlisted Advisor for the USAR 75th Innovation Command. She's at the forefront of shaping how the Army Reserve leverages cutting-edge technologies and forward-thinking strategies to build readiness for the future. Whew, that was a lot to say. The 75th Innovation Command plays a critical role in ensuring that the Reserve remains an agile, adaptable, and innovative force. If you haven't noticed, we're using some key terms here, so I need y'all to pay attention to those key terms. Dr. Stephen Dalzell, RAND Senior Policy Defense Researcher. He is the Senior Defense Policy Researcher at RAND. Dr. Dalzell insight focus on how the Army Reserve can use technologies and processes to continue to promoting readiness. The integration of technology and partnerships into training and readiness is not just about modernization, it is about ensuring that the Army Reserve remains adaptable, resilient, and ready to respond to the uncertainties of future conflicts. Dr. Dalzell's research empowers leaders to plan effectively for a future by understanding the real-world impact made by strategic policy decisions. Mr. William Hamilton, the USARC Deputy G357. As the Deputy Director of the USARC G357, Mr. Hamilton plays a pivotal role in integrating plans, operation, and training, ensuring that the Army Reserve stays ahead of emerging challenges and opportunities. With a deep understanding of current operational demands and future requirements, Mr. Hamilton is instrumental in steering the direction of readiness efforts, coordinating across teams to develop strategies that empowers our soldiers and enhance our capabilities. Last but not least, Ms. Diane Burkett, the USARC G4 Deputy Director. She is the Deputy Director of the USARC G4, and she plays a critical role in overseeing logistic initiatives that address unique challenges of equipment, acquisition, and employment within the Army Reserve. And me, I'm going to be your moderator today. I'm Sergeant Major Tyrena Tolbert with INSCOM, Intelligence Security Command, G3, Contract Linguist Intelligence Support Program Office. Let me turn my page here, give me a second. Okay. At this time, I would like to turn it over to our Command Sergeant Major, CSM Betty. The floor.
All right. This, am I mic? Am I good? So CSM Betty here. It's hard to compete against a meal. So right now we're competing against breakfast. So there's soldiers and everyone is upstairs eating breakfast. I can't compete with that. It's free food. Can't compete. I want to say appreciate the boss and Ms. Harder here and all the distinguished guests. Two things just for Mr. Hamilton and Mr. Denzel. This is Monday's shirt, so we're rotating the shirts, right? So we don't have a lot of shirts. So just bear with me up here because we're Army Reserve. We only got issued 2 shirts, a long sleeve and a short sleeve. So Monday I wore one. I let it rest Tuesday, and then Wednesday we're back on it. So just bear with me with that. Also, I got this shirt from where's Chief Robinson? Chief Robinson, where you at? Chief Robinson in the back. He hooked me up with a shirt way back. So this is actually a multi-compo event going on right here. right here is multi-compo. So we're making sure Total Army is right here. But it's an honor to be here at AUSA doing this. AUSA, thanks for allowing us to do these things. It's great so that we can come together and get the word out. Great stuff. We're going to talk about leveraging innovation, modernization, and building readiness. Just like yesterday, the boss spoke about if he was Thanos, things he would do, right? It will try to get more bigger training centers so that our soldiers can be ready and get ready. Our Army Reserve is about 172,000 strong. We're building as we go. But what we got to realize is out of that, we're 50 states. We're at 50 states. We 5 territories and about 20 different time zones. So a unit like the 377, the largest unit in the inventory, they have soldiers in about 30, 40 states. So CSM Musso can't just say, hey, formation, and have a formation. Even if he does it virtual, he still wouldn't get everyone. So that's how diverse we are in the Army Reserve. Compo 2 and Compo 1, they have a little bit better where Compo 2 serves in their state. Compo 1, they're on a post station camp where they can do that. But it's a little different for us. And that's the beauty of the Army Reserve because we're twice a citizen. We're twice the citizen, and with that, we bring different skill sets. We have our doctors, our lawyers. I work for the MTA, so I'm a transporter, but I'm also a sustainer in the Army. So we bring these different skill sets to the fight. That's what makes us such a great compo to be in. And like the boss says, if they go, we go, because they cannot sustain themselves without us and things like that. So we're here. The panel is here. I don't want to take up too much time, but it's so much to say about the Army Reserve. I love it. I've never been in any other compo but the Army for 37 years. This is a compo that I've been in. So I'm happy that you're here. You could be anywhere, but you're here to listen to what we have to say going forward. So with that, CSM, Sergeant Major.
Hi, thank you. At this time, we're going to watch an opening video. About you guys, but I always feel pumped up when I see those type of videos. I don't know if it's the music, I don't know if it's because of the types of jobs that we collectively do, but it just gives a good feeling. Does it give you a good feeling? I don't know, your hua is more like a ha, you know? Does it give you a good feeling? All right, that's a little bit better. We're gonna work on it. We got some time. So as we dive into the subject, we're gonna start with Command Sergeant Major Betty, and we're gonna ask questions. And again, I don't want to bore you guys to death, so I'm going to come down off this podium at some point, and I might even sit next to you because there's going to be a seat next to you because I can see that from where I'm standing. And I'm going to ask a question. I'm going to say, hey, I think you have a question for one of the panel members. So let's make this a good back and forth. Ask whatever questions that come to mind. You have a fantastic panel up here of subject matter experts that you wouldn't typically get. So let's take the best advantage that we can of that. So that being said, I'm going to turn to Command Sergeant Major Betty. All right, he has the game face on. Since stepping into your role as the Army Reserve Command Sergeant Major, what are some of the changes that you want to prioritize to enhance our formations for future combat?
So, great question. So stepping into this role, one thing that I've noticed is family programs. We got to do better at family programs and make sure that we get out there and get after it. I visited, as Chief and I, you know the Betty White story. So Chief and I went out and we visited family programs, and we got beat up, like severely beat up. They were yelling, oh, we don't take it serious. And I turned just one gentleman, he was heckling the hell out of us. And I'm like, hey, you have 2 of the 3 top leaders in the Army Reserve here at your program. I said the boss couldn't make it, but we are here to tell you that you matter. So I said, maybe you need to change how you present family programs. Make it a warfighting thing. It's part of warfighting. That's how I see family program. Because as any soldier, Compo 1, 2, or 3, if we deploy, when we deploy, if we know that our families are secure, they know where to go to get help. Unlike Compo 1, they're on a camp posted station where it's there. But the reservists or the Compo 2, we have to go to a certain place. They have to know the numbers to call, the people to call, and who to get in touch with. So I said, change it into a warfight, make it a warfighting function. So that's the thing with family program. We got to make sure we put that out there. And another thing is mindset. We need to change our mindset. We've been through years of GWAT and COIN, and now we're going into what's called LISCO, large-scale combat operation, large-scale mobilization operation. We need to make sure that we change our mindset. We go out, the boss and I, the chief and I, we go out and we visit BA, we visit training. And on a regular BA, you get in there on a Saturday morning, 07. and training doesn't start until 12. So right there, you lost 5 hours. 5 times 12 Saturdays for the year, that's 60 hours lost. Let's say you do a 10-day, let's say that's 10 days lost because you do about a 10-hour a day. No one works 24 hours a day. So you do a 10-hour, so you lost 6 days. We have 39 days to do greatness, and we just lost 6 days on the back end if you do the math. And then when you go to a AT or you go to a training event, and we walk in, you're 7 days in, and soldiers are still not switched on. We're still in that citizen mode. We're citizen warriors, and we're warrior citizens, but we got to switch on. As soon as we put this uniform on, we got to become soldiers because we're wasting a lot of days that we don't have. If you're the boss speaks, he says, we got to cherish every training moment that we have because it might be our last. And if we're not switched on immediately, and I get down at the first sergeants and those battalion sergeant majors, you got to get there. You got to have those meetings beforehand so that you are prepared when you get to battle assembly. You're prepared when you get to that training exercise. You're not now doing a meeting to get ready. We got to stay ready and be in the moment so that as soon as you put that uniform on, you're ready to go. And the last thing I want to see and have the conversation with the boss is sponsorship. Sponsorship. Before I got to this position, I was at TRADOC for about 3 or 4 months. And I visited Fort Jackson, and the sponsorship program is not right. I was going to use a different word, but I won't. Right? It's not right. So we got to get that right because you can't invite me into something you don't bring me in the right way. I'm just going to leave a bad taste in my mouth about that. So we got to get the sponsorship piece of it right and make sure we're bringing the new soldiers in because we're losing soldiers before they even get to BA. And then when we do get them into the units, they're not, even when you transfer them from unit to unit, even as a seasoned soldier, you don't know where the unit is. You don't know who's we need to do better to make sure we own soldiers as they come into the Army. I spoke to the recruiters, and there is a checklist, right? I see Sergeant Major Roz is looking at me. There is a checklist that they're supposed to go by, and they're supposed to hand that soldier over to the unit, and it's not happening. And there's soldiers that don't know where the units are. The numbers on the websites are not right. So these soldiers are out there in limbo, so we got to make sure we fix that, because that's become a retention problem. We get them in, and then we don't keep them because they don't think we care. We have to care. Sergeant Major?
Based on what CSM Betty just says, are there any other changes that you think that he should prioritize? I'm walking over because I can see you guys. I'm looking at who's going to look at me. Sir, is there anything else that maybe he might be able to prioritize in terms of change? Is the mic on? Mic check? Okay. Okay. We have a stand, but we had a mic. We was just trying to see if y'all were paying attention. Okay. All right.
Yeah, turn it on. We didn't train on mic, folks.
Good morning, Sergeant Major. Lieutenant Colonel Ike Singletary. Anything that you could change or prioritize? So you mentioned battle assembly weekends, and as far as commanders and first sergeants welcoming in their soldiers. Have we taken a look at some of those required training, the 350-1 training that we made, that tends to bog down a lot of the training, taking away training from getting out there to do actual PMCSs or going and exercising your vehicles? Have you taken a look at the 350-1 training so to kind of minimize some of that training?
It's a great question. I get asked that question a lot, and the thing they ask me is the boss, right? Is he going to allow for commanders to do that? The commanders have to take risk, and the boss said it yesterday. You have to be able to take those risks at the command level. Boss is not going to go around and tell you what to take risk on. You know your unit and the things you're strong and weak in, and what you need to get after. So the 350-1 is there. They're mandatory training, but you know what you need to take risk on. So if you need to take risk on a particular thing to get after MOS training and get after warfighting and get after being combat ready, then those are the risks you need to take as the commander. Boss, you have anything to add to that?
So macro, the Army and the Army SMA, they're doing another scrub at 350-1, and what tasks you don't have to do, why are we doing these things, what can be done at another time, right? So absolutely getting after that. So there's an official I guess, an official review of what we do with the 350-1 and all the other regulations. I say sometimes, and I probably shouldn't say this, if we can impose our bureaucracy on our enemies, right, we wouldn't have to fire a shot. Not to say that there's not some things that we absolutely have to get after that 350-1 and some regulations in Pam's outline, right? But at the same time, commanders got to own this at echelon. Yeah, and what the CSM's saying and what I said yesterday is we got your back if you're getting after warrior tasks and making your young men and women more lethal and ready for America's worst day, and you don't knock out some PowerPoint that someone said you're supposed to be doing. We got your back. Right, so I think that's where we are. Where I've seen a challenge, and I'll go back to these command sergeant majors, and we got some great esteemed leaders on here, is commanders at echelon do not want to take risk. And it's mind-boggling to me. It's one of the things I love about being a commander. I don't care what anybody else says, except my boss, right, who's also a commander, right, a couple of them. And so take risk. That you are where you are, and as a command sergeant major, you are where you are because we trust you. So get after it. Do what's right. Trust your instincts, as long as they're good. Trust your instincts, and we got your back.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Sir, thank you for that question. Is there anybody else that sees any changes? I see a hand over here. Did you need a mic, ma'am? Please. All right. Okay.
Good morning, Sergeant Major. So I've been doing this for a while, and I love what I do. And I know we tend to use officers' runway that they have and put them in multiple positions. What I've been seeing is the NCOs. Are we ever going to get back to the NCOs having runway, meaning if they come out of being a command sergeant major at some battalion, brigade, or even division, and they still have runway, can we put them at staff to utilize all their expertise? Because what I've seen in the past is if you don't take an assignment, then you're done. Maybe I don't want to command. Maybe I just want to be a staffer and still give the best of what I have.
Great question, ma'am. The sergeant majors, we're grown-ups, right? I operate off a grown-up role. You know what you need. And we also have SLDO that goes through the process of placing, especially at the battalion level. We'll place the talent. We use the talent management, and we place the talent where it's needed in the Army inventory. Right, but I do encourage. I took off the wreath and I went to TRADOC, and I learned some stuff in TRADOC that I brought to this table. When I interviewed with the boss, a lot of the TRADOC stuff came up where it made sense. So, yes, ma'am, we do need to take off the wreath. It's okay to take off the wreath sometime and get into your MOS or a broadened assignment so that you, and then get back as a CSM. It benefits you as the leader. You know, have more of a broadened assignment where you can see things differently and not just as a command sergeant major. So we do encourage, and at the end, if the soldier is 55 and he or she wants another assignment, all the ETPs come to me. I actually call the soldier and say, why do you want this? And we go through that process, we talk it through. And if it makes sense, if I don't get it, I'm gonna retire. If I do get it, I give you another 3 years. Why wouldn't I want another 3 years from a great leader? Because that great leader, while they're in that position as a staff sergeant major, they're teaching others. Whether it's an officer or a low enlisted, they're teaching others. So I do encourage them to go through. And SLDO and I work closely together so that we get to keep the soldiers. Like the boss, we're talking about the Miltex, where we lose Miltex after if they come out of the military. We can keep them beyond a certain, because that's a skill set that we need. We're going to need people to take care of our answer shop and everything else. So those are things that we need. So we do encourage CSMs, if they need to take the wreath off, and go through what we're short on CSMs. There's a lot of open CSM billets that we need to fill also.
Ma'am, thank you for that. CSM, although you're our host, I do see another question here, so let me move out the way because I didn't see her sneaking up on me. Okay.
Good morning, everyone. Colonel Graham, I'm the RC policy here at the Pentagon and G1. So if you do have some policy input questions, I'm the person that you should see, sir, to send those recommendations, because I am coming out to you to ask what you'd like to input into those policies. But going back to the comment, Sergeant Major, you mentioned that we lose 5 hours of training, so I'm kind of stuck on that, how units are losing 5 hours from 707 to 12. I'm not sure what they're not doing. Are they doing admin things? That's my first question.
They're planning the training the day of the training.
And that's my point.
Right.
So I came out of battalion command not too long ago, and when I did rotations and going to visit units, they didn't even have a training schedule. And so it kind of starts there. When you talk about what you would like to change, sometimes you have to kind of go back to basics and educate those NCOs on how to lead, because some, we have some who are, in positions, but they're not at that rank. They don't have a first sergeant, so they may have an E5. They may just have anybody doing something. So we have to probably kind of go back and train them on what right looks like.
No, I hear you, ma'am. I got a couple of 2-star CSMs in the room. I got CSM Turner there. We need the battalion leadership. That's the leadership that we need. The boss and I go to battalion command and BCC, PCC, where we emphasize getting after training especially at battalion level, because that's where we got the majority of first sergeant in the companies and everything else. So if we're not empowering those battalion sergeant majors and those battalion commanders to do what's right and to force those type of issues where you need that meeting, if that battalion leadership, if they aren't doing a meeting before BAs, then they're not setting them up for success. They're not leading by example.
Exactly.
So it starts there. And I'm not going to be the one going down to train, because I got the 2-stars.
But I understand.
Right? We have these conversations when we meet once a month. We have these type of conversations. Where we're at, what do we need to change, what we need to get after as leaders. So that's one of the things that I'm seeing where we're getting a slow start. I was a first sergeant once, and I made sure it's free money, because we don't get paid for it. But a lot of them, compensation is a thing, right? I don't know your financial status and everything else, but for me, I'm here because I want to be here. It's not because I got a civilian job and everything else. But we can get promotion points, we can do RMAs and things like that if you do need to get compensated. But we must prepare before. It's like going to war. We're not going to pack up and just go to war and fight. We have to do a plan and plan right. And so when we go there, we execute. We don't go to the theater and then, all right, let's have a meeting on how we're going to fight this enemy. We go in with a plan and we engage, fight, and win America's war.
Okay. And sir, General Holler, I know you said that commanders have to assume risk. I know that a lot of commanders, they focus on things that they're graded on. So if you continue that messaging, letting them know that you support them, with assuming risk and being able to critically think through those things, I think that'd be a good way of changing that culture as well.
Let me,
Mr. Hamilton?
yeah, let me just say a couple other things, and good to see you again, Deborah. In addition to what the Sergeant Major noted also is a couple of things that we're doing to try to make the full-time staff more efficient. In our A-grade course, when I go out to Knox, what we tell those AGRs, and there's not a lot of them, there's not a lot of full-time support, the lower you get down in our units, is that we teach them how to focus on those things that are priority and that are important for the commander, so that when that unit shows up on a Friday or a Saturday, they have already done the things and they don't have to do it. So for example, we talk to them about going into RIFMIS and requesting those ranges and those training areas so you don't have to worry about that. That's already done by your full-time, because they've been taught how to do that. Going to TAMIS, getting that ammunition, forecasting that, and getting it on the ground in the right place. And so refocusing the training of our full-time people, because again, there's not a lot of full-time support the lower you get. And we got to be focused on the priorities of the commander and doing those things so that when that unit shows up on a Friday evening, all that stuff has already been done and they can roll in, draw ammo, move out to the range, do what they need to do, and that's already been done. The next thing also is leveraging automation at Echelon to try to help with your planning and your preparation of your training, using the Army Training Network, the ATN, going in, doing that metal analysis, going to the TEOs, figuring out what you got to train on, doing that piece. You can get help from the 84th to do that. You can get help from our First Army partners to do that too. Do all that ahead of time. So again, when that commander rolls in there on a Friday night, all that kind of initial training analysis has been done. Maybe there's a draft training plan. He puts some finishing touches to it, and then those soldiers can roll into that training on a Saturday. So big thing for us is leveraging that automation so that those things that can be done by your full-time staff gets done during the week, which is what your full-time guys are supposed to be doing. They're keeping your training wheels rolling. And then making sure that those full-time folks that you have are properly trained, know the priorities, and know what they're supposed to be doing, because the full-time people are there to enable readiness and the training of that unit and making sure that they understand the processes and the standardized systems that they have to get into and get all that preliminary stuff done so that when the unit rolls in there on a Friday night, they're ready to train on Saturday.
Mr. Hamilton? Ms. Burkett?
Right. So to add on to what Mr. Hamilton just said, part of the work that G4 is doing with G37 is, as a follow-on to the AGRIT, is to take the 92 Yankees you have out there and those working property book and maintenance and getting them through GCSS Army 101 maintenance management immediately after AGRIT, so that when they pop into the unit, they're ready to go, and they don't need refresher courses, or you find out later on that they don't have the basic skill sets that you thought they were going to have when they showed up. So that's part of the work we're working with G37.
Yes. CSM?
AGRIT is the AGR Integrated Training Program. It's the one-week program that we run at Fort Knox. As soon as you're assessed into the AGR program, you go to your unit, and you got 60 days to get to that thing. Then you go to that 1 week at Knox, and we teach you everything you need to know about to be an effective AGR.
I'm sorry, CSM. Thank you, Mr. Hamilton.
And as you were asking the question, man, the first thing I thought about was training management. As a young E5 a few years ago, that was the first thing that was drilled into training management. We got the commander's intent, then we rolled out and we did training management. And now we've gotten to the point where we have a lot of systems, great systems out there, sometimes too many systems, so soldiers are trained in a few systems, but really putting that all together and collectively looking at how do we go back to the basics of just training management, where you got in a room prior to battle assembly, you're 90 days out, you were looking at training schedules. Training schedules meant something. Admin time wasn't the whole entire battle assembly, as Sergeant Major said. So it's really training those young non-commissioned officers to own that training management and to collectively sit in that room and have those ideas about how we're going to get after the task, because we never have enough time. We can talk about 39 days, we can talk about battle assemblies, MUTA 4, 6, 8, whatever it is. We'll never have enough time to train on what we want to train. So we have to get better at training management and then use the tools to leverage with the automation, but making sure our soldiers are trained on it, because I can't tell you how many times I went to AUSA and someone said, here's a new training tool. I'm like, oh, that's great. So we take it back to our formation. A year later, here's another tool, right? I'm like, okay, so which tool am I supposed to use? And really it goes back to what are we doing to build readiness? And, we talk about combat ready. What are those tasks that we need to do? We can talk about the mental tasks and collective tasks, individual tasks, but sometimes we just lose sight of that because it's just, we're kind of all over the place. So if we just use simple, basic training management tools like we did a few years ago, I think that would help us. But I honestly believe, and Sergeant Major, and we always talk about this, the non-commissioned officers are key to that role.
That's right. That's right. Thank you. I like the way you ended that sentence. All right, CSM, I know you're our host, but I do have one more question before we get to the panel members. As the Army Reserve faces new and evolving challenges, what policy, because we kind of touched on it a little bit today, what policy changes do you believe are needed most to enhance the reserve readiness for combat in the near future? Are there any innovative policies that are currently being explored?
See, you say that, and the colonel looked up at me immediately. I'll keep it. And I got the staff, the crew over there also, Sergeant Minyard and everyone else. All right, Sergeant Major Minyard. So for me, I had the opportunity to meet with SEAC Black, the senior enlisted advisor to the chairman. Hell of a Marine, hell of a soldier. We went in, myself and Master Sergeant Volstead went in, and he invited us. So I went in with take notes and everything. And if you know me, I'm not a note taker, but I know I'm going to the serious guys. I'm like, all right. So I go in and he said, all right, what you got? I'm like, what? I thought it was the other way around. So end of it, I said to him, back in Desert Storm days, right? Well, that's, 30 plus years ago. When I joined the Army, all you can be, which is back. 39 days seemed sufficient for training for that type of war. Now, 37 plus years later, why are we still at 39 days? Can we do the same things with just, is there a policy to change the 39 days? Because we went into the conversation, he said, if there's a call up and your boss gets the call, we might not be asking him for several units, a unit here, a unit there. They might tell the boss, we need your entire reserve. We need everyone, it's a full call up. Now what? How does that affect the U.S., the citizen, the community, the industry, and everything else. So I said to him, so the same thing with 39 days. Is there a way to increase those days, and how does that affect the communities? Again, we're twice a citizen. How does that affect our civilian job? Does that make us now unemployed? No one wants to employ us because we're gone too many times. I'm going to be away from my civilian job for about 3, if it keeps me on, maybe 4 years. So that's the thing. But I work for the state of New York, so I'm protected. I got ESGR in my back pocket, so they're there to protect me. But those are something that I have to. Is there a policy to change from 39 days to go forward, and how would that affect us as soldiers and affect the country as a whole? And another thing is what I would like to see is the schoolhouses. We're from, myself, Sergeant Major Turner, are from in the 80th. We're from a schoolhouse background. Mm-hmm. So what we see is when we get to schoolhouses, we're still using antiquated equipment. We need that equipment so that when we get to the battlefield, we're not learning how to use this equipment. We're learning it in the schoolhouses. So that's something I want to see change. That when we change out, get all these fancy new equipment, can we get those in the schoolhouses first, so that and in the reserve schoolhouses, so that we're not playing with old stuff. We're not just checking a block saying we sent you to school. We want to send you to the right school with the right equipment, so that when it's time to really fight and win America's war, it's not the first time you're seeing these G-Wiz, this new equipment. And we're going to talk about some of that new equipment here as we get into the panel. But those are some of the policies I would like to see change, where we figure out if 39 days is enough, and get the new equipment into our schoolhouses so that we're well trained, just as Compo 1. We're just as lethal as Compo 1 when we go in. That's it, Sergeant Major.
Thank you. You looked as though you might have had a question. I just wanted to make sure I addressed you. Did you have anything else that may be some policy changes that might need to be implemented that you can think of? If not, if you need to still think about it, let me know. You want to still think about it? Okay. Was there anybody else that might have had a question about policy changes? This is your chance. So we always grumble, right? We're sitting at battle assembly. You know, we don't have this. And I think they need to have that. We quarterback from the side. So now you have the powers that be that are here that can help implement that change. What say you? Anybody else have a question? Please.
Good morning. I'm Major Akers of OCAR. I don't want to tell you who my boss is. Just in case. Just in case. I don't have a question about a specific policy, Sergeant Major, but I am curious, is there a mechanism or something that Big Army or maybe any of our senior leaders have, or is there, how do we assess the changes that these policies that we put in place? And I'll give you a specific example. A couple of years ago, we were fielded JCPB equipment for our trucks. We got a whole bunch of people trained, and then that was that. The equipment requires a network access to run, and a lot of the people that we got trained on that equipment have transferred to other units. So the motor pool is filled with vehicles with this new equipment that no one can use. So is there a way to assess the policies that we put in place?
I see Chief Horn behind you. Look like he really, really wants to answer that question. So I'm going to let Chief Horn answer that question. And then Mr. Hamilton after.
So that is a very good question. And there is a gap in the training management life cycle, plus the equipment that's out there. And what you end up with, particularly from the automation and software piece, is that you'll have accesses that have to be granted, which take time. There's sometimes the clearances involved in some of that tools. And as you do that, you are going to have the NCOs that are going to rotate out. Ideally, if you can get that training across the board to all the NCOs in that MOS and specialty, as they rotate in and out, those credentials and the software accesses that are required can go with them, and that will help alleviate some of that.
Something?
Sure.
So if you don't mind, Sergeant Major, I'm going to use this as kind of a segue to talk about Mojave Falcon. So you make a good point. So we issue a JBCP, we do the training, do we ever get a chance to use it? In our current scenarios right now, probably not, because we're training in a small space. Now, Mojave Falcon, CSTX 2501 next summer, is going to be an exercise that we're designing pretty innovative. That's a little different than what we've been doing. We've always been partnering with other compos in our training. When we do a combat support training exercise at Fort McCoy, Wisconsin, we normally link it to a guard exercise at Camp Greening, Michigan, through basically Global Medic. So you had a chance to do medevac, CASEVAC, but you haven't been able to do at scale move other types of commodities. So what we're going to do next summer is, again, approximating large-scale combat operations, which happens over a much broader distance. You're talking about larger operations, more demands on commodities over larger distance. Is we're going to link an exercise at Fort Hunter Liggett, California, to a live brigade in the box at the National Training Center at Fort Irwin, California. That's a distance of about 320 miles. And so what that will have is the 9th Theater Sustainment Command working those commodities at a distance of over 300 miles to a live brigade that's fighting a live OPFOR in the box. We'll have some live OPFOR also at Fort Hunter Liggett. And in that distance, driving that 320 miles, we're going to make those soldiers use that JBCP to track those convoys. No more pulling out your cell phone and talking on your cell phone, because in the next war, if you do that, you're dead. They'll find you. So use that JBCP, use those systems that we have given you, and we're going to be pushing class 1, 2, 3, 5, 7, and then you're also going to be doing medevac and CASEVAC over 320-mile distance. All that will be linked together in a virtual wraparound. It'll be live virtual. We'll inject some virtual things as they're driving that distance, but it'll be live OPFOR at McCoy. At Hunter Liggett. It'll be live OPFOR at naturally in the box at the National Training Center. Our soldiers will be required to use those systems that they've been issued, the JBCP, use CPOF, use CPCE, use those systems that they've been trained to use in a classified network, because again, in large-scale combat operations, if you turn on an emitter, you're going to be found. So that exercise next summer, we're hoping to pull all those systems out, those satellite shots, pull that stuff out. We're going to have guard guys that'll be working down at, as a part of Grecian Fireboat. They'll be down at Camp Pendleton. We're going to have port operations at Point Renimi, and all of those things are going to have to be linked together in a virtual wraparound using tactical systems. And the big thing, that's one system that you pointed out, JBCP, those convoys, as they're moving over that 320-mile distance, to be required to use those things so that the TSC back at Fort Hunter Liggett, California, can track where that convoy is as it pushes commodities forward to the National Training Center. Likewise, communicating back as they move back through there, and then being able to keep up with the demand that's being created by that brigade combat team in the box at the National Training Center. So over 320-mile distance, being able to forecast and at the same time battle track, and at the same time track the tactical situation, because just because you're back here, back in the Theater Sustainment Command area, doesn't mean you can't be attacked by a UAV. So we think that whole exercise is going to be very, very exciting. We're going to do that in 25, and then in 26, we're going to do something similar where we're going to have our Theater Sustainment Command at Camp Shelby, Mississippi, with a live brigade in the box at Fort Johnson, Louisiana. So a chance to pull that JBCP out that you were talking about, get it out there, get it on a doctrinal distance, and actually exercise.
Thank you, Mr. Hamilton. I want to pause you. You can't share all your thunder just yet. You can't share all your thunder just yet, but I want to pause you for a second. CSM Turner, you're up for questions right now. NCOs are at the forefront of driving innovation with the 75th Innovation Command. Can you elaborate on some specific ways that NCOs are leveraging technology to enhance readiness and problem solving?
Absolutely, thanks. And thanks, CSM Betty, for the opportunity, and the panel members. It's been great getting a chance to have some time with you and learn about your different aspects. It's great to have the front row and the leadership. I've now learned that I can deflect the front row for a phone a friend. So thank you for that lead. I got that, sir. But again, one of the questions I always get, I've been in this seat as a Command Sergeant Major of the 75th for about a year and a half, so I get the question all the time, what is the 75th and what do you innovate? What do you do? And I say yes. I've learned to say yes, and then we go into a very long conversation. But the 75th is, sometimes we're called the unicorn, we're called a very non-traditional unit, but at the heart, we're still soldiers who we have the same mission to be combat ready and to make sure that we are meeting the intent of our commander and the boss sitting in the front row. But when you think about the 75th and its uniqueness, we are a direct report to OCAR. We are a direct asset of the Army Reserve Command, and we are direct support to the Army Futures Command. So we're part of the transformation enterprise in lots of different areas. One of the things when we talk about leveraging innovation, it really is about our people. So if you think about the 75th, we have some very unique skill sets. So when we recruit, we're not recruiting for specific functional areas or MOSs. We're really recruiting for that civilian acquired skill set, certifications, and talent. When they come into our formation, they have this operational experience, which is amazing and wonderful. But they also, when we talk about twice a citizen, they're bringing in that civilian talent that we really need. So when we were talking the last couple of days, if you've sat in any of the briefings, everyone has talked about the wicked problem sets that the future fights are going to be. And there's no doubt there's some problem sets that it's going to take collaboration and some work between compos, allies to be able to solve. But what I would say when people talk about these wicked challenges, I said, that's great, but we have wicked smart people too. So when I look within the 75th and I look in our allies and our partners in different compos, I look at, we have the AI, we have the data scientists, we have the HMI, we have people who are doing large language models, you know, like I make a cup of coffee in the morning and they're solving something on the civilian sector. And sometimes I sit in a briefing like, wow, okay, that's great. I'm glad you're on my team, right? And you think about cyber and the EW, you think of all those things, and that's what makes us great as an Army Reserve soldier. We bring those talents in. Sometimes when we get incorporated in teams, they'll say, oh, that's great. Can they come work for us full time? I said, absolutely not, because that's what makes them so great, is they go back into that civilian sector on a battle assembly weekend. They're helping solve Army Transformation Enterprise initiatives, but then they're going back into that private sector, and they really have this talent that sometimes on our brothers and sisters on the compo one side, they don't have. So we are a great complement to them, but that's what makes us unique. Now, we do have people who want to take some tours, and that's great, but at the end of the day, they come to the 75th, we're solving problems. But when you think about innovation in grassroots, there's lots of different grassroots with innovation cells, hubs. There, you know, now we're building brick and mortar, but at the end of the day, it's about people solving those problems and their technical skill sets. So I think when we think about leveraging innovation, I always start with the people first. I know we could talk all day long, and we've heard some things here at AUSA. We've heard the chief speak about different things in the future, but really it is some of our very complex challenges that we're going to face. It's a collaboration, so it's going to take the USAR soldier. As we say, you can't go to the fight without us. Some of these problem sets you're not going to solve without some of our soldiers and their civilian acquired skills and certification and what they bring to the table. So active component, we love them, sir, but they can't have our soldiers. They can have them for a piece of that time. And I would say, too, one of the unique opportunities that we have as a 75th is when we're at the table and we are helping solve these problems, we also can then say, what about the USAR? So we're bringing that USAR interest to the table. So not only are we trying to solve a Compo 1 issue that is on the table, but we're also trying to look at, if we're talking water purification, and I know Ms. Burkett's going to talk a lot about logistics in a minute, but if we're talking about solving those problems, the USAR, they're the ones that are going to be at the forefront of that. So when you think about problem sets and you think about different capstone exercises, and I know Mr. Hamilton mentioned Mojave Falcon, those are the things that we have to make sure that soldier touch points, we're right there. And our soldiers are looking at that new equipment. Our soldiers who are helping solve that technology comes back to the Army Reserve equities, and how do we build that readiness for the Army Reserve, not just solve other people's problems, which is great, and we're part of a team. We're team players, sir, so don't hear me say anything else. We're a team player, but there are absolutely things within the USAR that we can help and leverage innovation. Currently, we're working on a readiness visualization tool, so that will help those commanders and first sergeants really look at collective readiness, individual readiness. We have lots of different systems, don't really talk to each other. So we have initiatives looking at how do we help those soldiers? Because right now, and Command Sergeant Major, you kind of mentioned it, we are short Command Sergeant Majors. We're also short first sergeants. So we have E7s sitting in a first sergeant bill, or we have lieutenants who are company commanders. So we need to make sure that we're giving them the tools that we can to help them do the jobs that they need to do quicker and not have to, the day of looking at a PowerPoint and then updating slides and staff just spending all their time updating a slide. That's what we wanted to do in the past, where it is just a touch and the commander has that information. So.
Thank you, CSM. By a round of applause, can all the NCOs give me a clap? Can they give me a little round of applause? Thank you. I appreciate that round of applause as well. Thank you, because I'm an NCO. Out of those NCOs, can I have a round of applause for those who work in technology? Wow.
It's a good thing.
You're a unicorn. Whoever that was that clapped, we have unicorns in the. Okay, I was just kind of curious. How many of those NCOs and really the audience were familiar that the reserves had a unit such as Command Sergeant Major takes care of as the 75th Innovation Command? Okay. All right, spot on. Thank you, CSM. Dr. Dazell, your work highlights the importance of strategic choices in defense. How do you see the Army Reserve's modernization efforts and personnel management and training aligning with broader defense strategies for multi-domain operations?
Okay, so it's the one person on the panel that doesn't have the monthly paycheck that says Department of the Army at the top. My caveats are this. One, I can only talk about things that RAND has already published and is out there in the public domain. If you have a question on something that is a little more sensitive or might be classified at some point, feel free to come up to me afterward and I can help you try to find the information that you're interested in, because we do it for you. It doesn't serve a purpose if it doesn't get out to the field. Secondly, anything that I say that is future-oriented or what if, that's Steve's opinion. That's not a RAND position. That's nothing that is out there that we have a formal statement on. So it's just take it for personal insights based on my experience. The question about the relevance and how we tie all this together for strategic ends is so broad that it's really hard to summarize it down into a few sound bites. So what I wanted to do is play off of the CARS point yesterday that I think we've already heard mentioned, that when he was asked what's the one thing that he might think of if he were king for a day and could have all the resources to do something, and he just tossed out, and maybe it was a spur-of-the-moment idea or something that's been incubating for a while, well, close a bunch of reserve centers and reinvest that money into larger training facilities like Fort McCoy. And again, not knowing that that's a serious topic on the table, I'm going to take it and run with it and say, what would you do with that? So at RAND, we have the luxury of looking for the deep battle. While all of you are, working on today's wicked problems with your wicked smart people, we have the luxury of saying, you guys got that. We're looking a little bit farther down. So if the Army Reserve wanted to reconfigure its constellation of facilities and installations and training sites, what would the next questions be? Right? What are the things that General Harder would have to have in hand before he took that up to the Secretary of the Army with that an idea? So two ideas come to mind. First is, which 500 reserve centers would he want to close? Because if you use a sledgehammer on it and just say, we're going to close the oldest ones first, we're going to close the ones that cost us the most money, we're going to close the ones that are least occupied by drilling reservists today, you might end up with a whole bunch of really beautiful, really packed reserve centers in Texas and Arizona. And if you're a reservist up in Lake Wobegon, you're driving 300 miles to go in and do some minor administrative task that takes being in person. So you're probably going to want to use some really smart modeling and sophisticated analysis to weigh those factors and say, we can't close everything up here. We need to sort of look at where the reservists are, where they need to be for when they do have to go to a reserve center, and come up with a strategy for how you're going to optimize it to make sure nobody's left out in the cold and you're actually going to get the savings you want without diminishing your readiness in a negative way, right? You want to think big picture like that. And I've worked enough with the Army Reserve engineers and in OCAR, ARMD, the Installation Management Directorate, to know that they're working on giving the car that kind of data already, right? They're coming up with systems to bring that data together to solve those tough problems. And that's where the first place you'd look. The second piece, which gets into more of the area that I study, is what are the second order effects on the personnel system, right? If you did close those reserve centers, what does the personnel system have to be able to offer you to make up for that gap? For just changing the whole system to accommodate that vision that the leader has. And so conveniently enough, 5 years ago, we did a study for OSD where their mandate was basically think broad, think deep, look at other countries. Look at the ways that our Cold War system of putting forth a reserve component may be outdated and may not fit today's American society, the American workplace, the American family. And we came up with 9 ideas that were areas that we thought that OSD and the services and the components could explore that are very much sort of common sense today, perhaps, but I don't think we've gone far enough yet to look at them. Things like treating it, using the gig economy approach, right? If you've got reservists who have extra time and you've got extra missions out there, coming up with something like what's now called Gig Eagle, I think. The Air Force has sort of taken the lead on one model for how you might do that, but we were trying to identify that kind of thing. How do you change the training cycle so it's not one weekend a month, knowing that most American, a large share of American population, the American workforce, they work on weekends, every weekend. And it's really hard for them to make a commitment to a job that requires weekend participation. So can we think outside the box and come up with different ways where they can reschedule their training to fit their lives? And can we capture, like one estimate was 22% of the American population works in career fields that have a bunch of these traits that say it's really hard to be an Army reservist because my life, my civilian job isn't that flexible, doesn't allow me that kind of opportunity. So how do you change the rules to get that 22% back into the game, to make them part of your recruiting field? We did it for one problem, but if you're talking about changing the constellation of reserve centers, a lot of those solutions might also help solve the personnel problem that would create. So that's the kind of thinking we're trying to look at, because these are wicked problems. These are very difficult problems that with AI and machine learning, we may be able to find better ways to combine the data and solve some of those issues that we're going to be facing, because the money's only going to get tighter and the missions are only going to keep going. And how do you continue meeting them in the middle?
Thank you, Mr. Dassel. This is an interesting type of study, right? And in the reserves, most times we're not thinking about that. Is there anything else in terms of what Dr. Dassel has mentioned that you can add on in terms of a question or thoughts that you can bring back to your reserve units or just your Army units in general? Yes, sir.
I know that we've got some of our allied partners here. One of the other pieces is rethinking and reshaping how we do it as you spoke. One of our allied partners, the UK, has a program for when you do the non-traditional time on your nights and weekends for getting pay for some of those times that you're doing training online. They have a way within a secure network on your phone or on your computer to validate that you've done the work and allow for you to get paid. And so at the end of every month, it allows for it to do that. Has RAN looked at any of those allies as other ways to do this?
Yep. We often, like almost every report, somebody says we should look at the UK, Australia, Estonia. Lots of our partners are being very innovative and creative. That particular technological piece was not one that I can recall that we looked at, but that's exactly the kind of thing we're hoping to do. And again, we look around NATO, for example. Almost all of our NATO partners are suffering the same kind of challenges reaching out to their populations to recruit and retain the best people to be in the overall military and their reserve components. And so solutions like that one partner finds and the rest can borrow from are exactly the kind of things that I think we try to offer. We try to provide that service to the Army and the Army Reserve by scouting out and trying to bring things back. But that's not one that I've seen us actually explore what the implications would be.
Thank you, sir. I'm going to go over to Ms. Burkett. Ms. Burkett, the Army Reserve carries a significant portion of the military's logistics capabilities, especially in liquid logistics. Can you tell us about liquid logistics?
Absolutely. So, very passionate about liquid logistics as we carry most of that in the Army Reserve for the Army. But just think about yesterday's exhibits that you saw. Very innovative, super cool, blow your mind type of technology. So we saw anywhere from avionics to sensors, optics, next generation JLTVs, ballistic armor. All of that was just absolutely super cool, innovative. But there are two elements that bring the common ground to be able to execute and operate. And what are those two? Fuel and water. So I would just say take a second and just think about the lack of fuel and water as we go to execute using any of the high-tech, innovative things that we saw yesterday. If you just take a second and think about it, that should really blow your mind, right? So Army Reserve, thinking about the fuel and the water. So we're talking about sustaining equipment, we're talking about sustaining the warfighter. So when we think about large-scale combat operations, it's not just about executing the fight now, it's about moving forward, executing the next fight, right? And the next fight, and the next fight. We've got to reconstitute the force, fuel and water, right? So let me talk a little bit about the fuel piece there. So how do we plan for fuel? Well, we always plan for the most demanding operation that we're going to go into, and then we always want to keep fuel at or above the maximum authorized level. So thinking about that, we're providing consistent and continuous fuel to meet the demands from the source to the point of need at the right place and at the right time, just like our CG has said. Getting things at the right place, at the right time, at scale, on time, right? So it's all of those pieces fitting together. How do we in the Army Reserve do that? And what do we provide? Well, simply petroleum pipeline operations. The Army Reserve carries 100% of that operation for the Army. So that's bringing in fuel from wherever the point of origin is. It could be offshore, it could be inland through refineries, whatever that is. We've got 100% of that capability to bring that from the point of origin. The second is our petroleum support companies. We carry over 80% of that for the Army. They store and distribute fuel from a theater area out to the Corps, and then the last piece is the distribution of the fuel on a theater basis, and that goes out from the theater to the Corps down to the division level. And we, the Army Reserve, carry over 75% of the ability through our 7.5 and our 5K trucks and trailers on that area basis. So if you take that in and think about that, we are critical to the warfighting function there and to sustain that. And that's just the fuel piece. So when you talk about the water, I mean, it's really kind of, don't really have to say a lot about water, but what you don't know about water is it's not just drinking, right? So we need that for competition, crisis, conflict, and it's more than just drinking. It's about using it for hospitals, seaburn operations. The list goes on about what you need, laundry and bath services, and we across the Army Reserve and the National Guard provide bulk water purification, distribution, and storage for the Army. We are the Title X responsibility, otherwise known as the executive agent for the Army in theater to provide bulk water distribution, purification, and storage. So thinking about that and the equipment that we have and some of the innovative ways we're going about it may not be as fancy as what we saw yesterday, but absolutely critical. And as we saw, it's not just about the us being able to do large-scale contingency operations. It's about being able to do things here on the homeland. We're a community-based organization. Again, I said that between us and our brothers and sisters in the National Guard, we provide 100% of the bulk water distribution, storage, and purification. That's also considered the equipment that's used for that, critical dual-use equipment. So what we just saw in Hurricane Helene and Hurricane Milton, being community-based organizations, it's absolutely critical that we're able to provide those services between us and the Guard. So I hope that kind of puts some perspective on the importance of liquid logistics and why we need to keep thinking of the innovation, because again, it's not just about this fight, it's about the next fight and continuing on.
All right, does anybody have questions about liquid logistics? Yes, Sergeant. We got Sergeant Major coming to the mic.
Yeah.
Okay. It makes me think of Mad Max, you know, when you see them with the big tanker and they're going, and it's always what? Fuel and water in those tankers, right? So we're like kind of like the low-key Mad Max, you know, in uniforms and stuff.
Sergeant Major Cook with the Deputy Assistant Secretary of the Army, Military Personnel Quality of Life. The question is, we've talked about LISMO and LISCO. We saw during COVID operations how to move people and Operation Ally Welcome quickly to support what was needed. How does that look for equipment moving forward with most of them at the AMSAs and ECS shops, and then having them go from those locations or their units to SPOD?
Right, so great question. So, you know, we are cost savings to the Army, right? If we were expensive, they wouldn't need us to be who we are, part-time force doing a full-time job. So our AMSAs and ECSs, which for those that don't know, those are our maintenance activities that, again, community-type based, they're spread across continental U.S., and we use those to help augment our part-time force that works that. So because we are a part-time force and we have a lot of equipment, full-time equipment, part-time force, is we have to prioritize. We have to prioritize what missions, what type of equipment we need to get in, keep maintained, and keep fixed. Again, I talked about critical dual-use equipment. So our opportunity to really test this, like you mentioned, was during COVID, right? We would consider COVID contested environment. I would say is a contested environment. We could see that again, you know, so our ability to be able to prioritize our equipment, I think we do a great job. We get great guidance from our leadership on what missions we need to focus in on, and really the critical dual-use equipment that between us and the National Guard have prioritized that we need to keep maintained. I think we do an absolutely great job in the Army Reserve.
So just to carry
yes,
on that, the boss mentioned it yesterday, as we get closer to LISMO, LISCO, and it's not a if, it's a when, right? We talk about pre-positioning of equipment also. So we're not just going to wait for the balloon to go up and we start to move equipment out. We have to think ahead. We do have units stationed all over. We as the Army Reserve, we have about 10,000 soldiers that's deployed with the commanders throughout the world. So that's how we pre-position our people and our equipment, so that when it's time to go, we have equipment close enough so that we can get into the fight as quickly as possible.
Thank you, CSM. Mr. Hamilton, how has the Army Reserve adapted its training approach to incorporate new technologies such as virtual and augmented reality?
So I've already kind of talked with you about how we're going to be leveraging an environment we're going to create for Mojave Falcon. A couple of things that we're doing also is we have simulators. Those simulators, those systems basically can simulate the systems that soldiers will be operating. They can use them in different places. They can use them in their reserve centers, and so we can simulate wretches. We can simulate, which is our cargo handling gear. We can simulate wreckers. We can simulate truck driving. We also have a thing called virtual battle space, VBS-3. What that does is it creates this virtual wraparound so soldiers can train on Army warrior tasks and skills. In addition to that, we've leveraged some standardized systems to help us make decisions and maintain, and this kind of connects with what Sergeant Major Cook was saying. So we have a thing called our HLO COP, Homeland Operations COP. And what that Homeland Operations COP does is it pulls from Vantage. And, you know, we've used Vantage for a while. We used Vantage during the pandemic to figure out where the rates of infection were. It pulls from a system called Power BI. Power BI is a decision tool. And then it leverages the standardized systems, GCSS Army, that has your here's what's up and here's what's down in the system, and it helps us make decisions very quickly. It pulls that all together. It pulls in from National Weather Systems, hurricanes, NIFC, the fire support, and what it does is when we stand up a crisis action team, it pulls all that together and on a geographic map can tell us where the systems are that Ms. Burkett talked about. It can tell us where they are, what AMSA and ECS they're in, and also what their status is, what's up and what's down, where are your high water vehicles, where are your 5-ton records, where are your front loaders and stuff. And so those systems have pulled in and help us make decisions very quickly. But the biggest thing I think that the systems that really help is our virtual training systems, our simulators, the creation of that virtual environment using VBS3 to help soldiers train. And again, it's not as good as getting out and walking through the woods, but what it does do is it does create an environment where you can train those soldiers on their warrior tasks and skills that they need to do, and then they can get out in the dirt with those NCOs doing things such as land nav. It gives you the preliminary training, and then you can do things at night, get out, put those night vision on and do the things, the basics that you're learning in there. Also, we have weapon simulators that simulates various weapons, and it helps you do your preliminary marksmanship training early on. Then you can get out on that range with that NCO, and you can actually do the live fire stuff. So that's how we're using all those systems to help train and basically, you know, help you be ready to get out of that reserve center and get out in a live environment. But at the same time, do that preliminary training, making good use of that time on that Saturday morning we talked about, so you can actually take that Saturday afternoon and get out and drive that truck on the road, get out there and do things at night, put those night visions on in a live environment.
Mr. Hamilton, we do have a question online, and any one of the panel members or the host can answer this question. Can the Army Reserve have more multi-compo training opportunities for battle assemblies and annual training to better integrate into those forces for the future fight?
So I can start with that. I have the opportunity to sit on the SMA SEC, and sitting on that SEC gives me full leverage of Compo 1. I see Sergeant Major Jill Crosby in the back from she's also on the SEC. Thanks for the support, Sergeant Major. And we have those conversations where we say, if you're doing something and you think we're going to be value added to it, please let us know when we get out. But money is an issue. We'll go to the boss, but the boss also wants that, because we don't want to go to a fight the first time meeting up with our partners. So we need to make sure, and all the Indo-PACOMs, and we get those phone calls, hey, Sergeant Major, when are you coming over? I'm not the one that you need to come over. We need the units to come over to get into the fight, get into those exercises. And it's happening. Those things are happening more and more. Some we don't see, but they are happening. And those are the things where the boss and I need to go and see happen, where we have multi-compo training exercises. Like we have CSM Reigns up front, and the same thing. If he's doing something, we're connected. We're almost brothers now, right? Where we just go about it and we talk and we have these conversations where if he's doing something that he thinks it will benefit the Compo 3 and vice versa, we're going to make sure that we make it happen. And so those are things that we do, and that's the reason for the SEC. And I'm inviting SEC members to my SEC from Compo 1 and Compo 3, Compo 2, to have these conversations. Hey, these are things that we can do. These are our capabilities. How can we enhance your training? And that's how we're getting after things like that. Any other comments?
So we're getting ready to issue an order. We've actually given the order to Forces Commander. They're going to issue what's called a mission alignment order, and that will help implement what we are calling our regional alignment concept. And what that regional alignment concept will do is, we've always had kind of a partnership level, but it formalizes and provides kind of left and right limits for us training in a multi-compo environment. And so what it'll do is it'll align our units, the higher level units, the echelon above brigade units, with the ASCC and a compo. And so there'll be there'll be 3 levels. There'll be the gift MIC assignment. We have units that are gift MIC assigned to certain Army Service Component Commands and combatant commands. Then there will be the quote task level, and what that task will be is if you want to do some partnering with another compo, or even in a do some type of overseas training, that will come back through our collective training advisory group to the Army Resourcing Conference that happens twice a year, and then you'll be tasked. And then below that, there's the Total Force Partnership Program, and what that Total Force Partnership Program does is it allows our units to partner with other components and then focus on a geographic region. We already have some units that are already geographically aligned, like our KCOMs. We're not going to break those alignments. We have units that actually have alignments on the pin in Korea. But what it'll do is it'll enhance that by providing kind of a governance and a left and right limits to a mission assignment order that will allow them to habitually work those relationships and those partnerships. Also, what that regional alignment concept will do is it will allow us to know who is partnering with what regions and then what units, so that if an operational requirement comes along, then what we can do is we can assign a unit to do an operational mission in that geographic area that they're already familiar with. But down below at the lowest levels, that Total Force Partnership Program, which is a key component, a base component of our regional alignment, will allow our commanders at echelon to partner with other compos.
Thank you, Mr. Hamilton. We did have one more question from the audience. Ma'am?
General Seabury, and my comment is, I've been in the foxhole with the soldiers for quite some time, and our soldiers' responsibility is changing. Not just children. Now a lot of them are taking care of their elderly parents with dementia, which is on the rise, and another illness. And so what I would like to see is like a speed dating type of concept when it comes to soldiers in units. And hear me out. This is going for innovation in Iran, right? What if there was an app, in Seabury's world, there's an app. If I can't come to battle assembly, say it's January now, I can't come to battle assembly in February because my unit is doing the first week of February. I can find a unit on the speed date app that says there's a unit that's doing individual training that my unit is locked into, that I can tap on that and I can go to that unit to execute that training. And my unit actually sees me do the individual training, not collective training, solely individual. Because at the end of the day, I am a ready soldier and I can still execute my mission. So if we're doing driver's training and I live in Oklahoma and I'm just so happen to be on vacation in Florida that month, maybe, because I'm bored, I go to a unit in Florida and they're doing driver's training and I get credit for doing that driver's training because that is an individual thing that I am doing. I don't know. Innovation. Talk to me.
I'll take that and then I'll turn it over. So I would say yesterday when I was walking the floor for a couple minutes, I stopped at the Warrior Corner, and it was innovation as a mindset. And I was like, oh, this is going to be interesting. I can't wait to hear what they say. But we were talking about the speed of innovation, right? So we can do all these great things with the speed of innovation. But to your point, ma'am, when you think about our mindset and how we traditionally think about a battle assembly or how Compo 2 thinks about. Some of those challenges are the same challenges that we have. So when we think about, when we're going to talk about LISMO and LISCO, our families are a huge part of that. We're leaving our civilian jobs. We're leaving, whether it's a technician job and gone into a unit. So those are the types of things that we have to go through. But to your point, ma'am, there are lots of tools. And I always say an app's not going to solve everything, but if we look in our formation, we need to have that information that's relevant and that soldiers can access quickly. Because if I want to take an ACFT, right, and I need an ACFT, I should just be able to go to somewhere that has an ACFT going on. And that was the big thing when we first brought out the ACFT. We'll never be able to do it. The equipment, we can't pre-position things. I can take an ACFT with a Compo 2 soldier or a unit. I can take it with a Compo 1. If I'm on an installation, I should be able to do all those things. So to your point, when you look at, and Dr. Gazelle was talking about brick and mortar buildings, right? We have some Compo 2, Compo 3 that are co-located, so we can utilize the resources. But I think we really have to get out of the mindset of how we traditionally perform battle assemblies, traditionally performed our annual trainings, and how do we get after some of this where our soldiers have access to it, like you said, because it's great to have all these resources, but if our soldiers don't know where the resources are, it's just out there.
The reason why I said that, because if you think about the soldiers, they have TikToks and all this other stuff, so they're going to go to an app. If I can, like I said, if I'm doing something in January and I want to take an ACFT with a unit that's in California, I can commit, say, hey, I'm going to be at their battle assembly, and they see that they have an extra person coming to their battle assembly, and I lock that in. Maybe I lock it in every time there's an individual training day, not collective, because the collective is where you build that team cohesion. Why not create it?
So man, we almost got you there. So as a part of one of our initiative action plans that we've been working on the past couple of years, we've already created a thing called IT COP, Individual Training Common Operational Picture. It's not an app, but it's on a web page, and it pulls from DTMS, and what it does is exactly what you said. If I'm a soldier that's down, say, in pick a state, South Carolina, and I miss a PT test, ACFT, I can go into IT COP, click into, say, Virginia or somewhere, and it'll tell me, if the unit's loaded into DTMS, it'll tell me that there's a unit in 2 weeks that's doing an ACFT, and you can click into that. Then you can go to your chain of command and say, hey, Sergeant Major, can I get an RST so I can drive up here to, pick a state and do the PT test with them or do a weapons qualification with this unit here. It's called IT COP. It's already available on our webpage. It's not an app, so that's a good point, the thing we got to work on. It is a web page with a link, but right now a soldier can click into that, and we're continuing to put more fidelity into it by making sure that as it pulls from DTMS, it actually can say, here are the things that are going on and where they're going on. So we're almost there, we're just about there. But IT COP, I think, is going to really help our soldiers do exactly what you just stated.
Thank you, Mr. Hamilton. Ladies and gentlemen, y'all have been fantastic. We were collaborative. I asked a question, you asked a question, we had a great conversation, right? And all of this based on leveraging innovation and modernizing and building readiness through our people, training, and equipment. At this time, I would like to again thank you. And CSM, I'd like to defer to you for closing comments.
All right, we're running short on time because we're great. We have a lot to talk about. So we didn't get all our topics in, but I think we got a lot that we needed to get in, and a lot of information come out. And just like Dr. Zell said, if you have additional questions and things we didn't get to, feel free to come up and ask afterwards, and we'll gladly answer them, because we have panels. I know everyone has some place to be and everything else, and we got the boss here, we got a bunch of bosses here that's got to get out. So, but before, I want to thank my panel members for coming out, and I appreciate everyone and the talent that's here, the SME level. And they just know the stuff. I could just sit here and just be here, and they can answer all the questions. All right, I'm just a filler. I'm just a guy sitting in the middle. But before we close out, we got to close out. I want to bring up our best warrior, the Army Reserve best warriors. I want to bring them up on stage. All right, I want to bring them up on stage. All right, we're missing one, but he's not really missing. We send him to school. Right, he's going to drill sergeant school. Right, just come on up, y'all of the greatness. Come on, we can come up. I just want to say, this is the Army Reserve best warrior. We talk about lethality, we talk about soldiering. This is it right here. And the boss and I and all of the commands are super proud, super proud of what you've done, what you've accomplished, how you go about your business. We watched you. We watched you and we saw you. You see me, I'm on the website. I'm like your biggest fan. I told your command, I stole you for 2 months, right? So after this weekend, I'm going to give you back. But I'm coming, boss and I, and Chief's wanting to. We're going to get out to Puerto Rico, and we're going to make sure that we celebrate you in a big way, because this is lethality. This is how we get after lethality, and this is how we get after making sure that we train. But what I want is, and I told the CSM, she's in the back, CSM Smith, I want to make sure you don't stay in the same unit. Right? All this greatness that you have over these past, spread out and teach others. I want 5 different best squads out of Puerto Rico next year. And I'm challenging all the commands in here. I know they're upset because I'm wearing the Gardita patch on my shoulder. I see Sergeant Major there. It's about them right now. They're in the spot. I'm going to highlight them. But guess what? You come in, let me show it off a little bit. Let me show it off. Boom. Right? So if you want me to wear your patch around next year, AUSA, be here. All right? Be here. They're here for that reason. Do you think, Sergeant Major? Sir?
I have no closing comments.
No, sir. Before your closing comments, we need you on the stage, sir, because I like you. I like you, sir. three stars are better than one. CSM Smith.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, sir. Before I publish the order, I would like for everyone to stay seated. The Secretary of the Army has reposed special trust and confidence in the patriotism, valor, fidelity, and professional excellence of Specialist Bonilla Abel and Specialist Elvin Rivera. In view of these qualities and their demonstrated leadership abilities and dedicated service to the United States Army, they are therefore promoted from specialist to sergeant effective 1 October 2024 with a date of rank of 1 October 2024 by the authority of the Department of the Army.
Machado's 4 weeks short of time of service time
Who could write a waiver?
All right. So thanks a lot, sir. Thanks for coming up. And
Please
thanks
be
a lot.
seated.
All right. So we got a really awesome video that we got to show. But before we show the video, I just want to thank the moderator. Right. This is my battle buddy. Right. I've known her 30 plus years. She's about to retire at the end of this month. But USART has a ball. I'm supposed to be her moderator for her ball, but USART has a ball the same day. So I can't go. So I said, you know what? What can I do? I'm going to have a captive audience. You can't go anywhere until I tell you to go. So I have a captive audience. So what I'm going to do is,
No, you're not.
I want to say
No.
thank you for your time and service.
Battle.
And I appreciate it. Hold on.
I didn't know you was going to do this.
You can't. But also, I wanna give you.
No, this is not what we. No.
This is not what we planned.
No.
You're supposed to know the schedule.
Wasn't on
You're
the
here for a reason. This is a plaque. It's a Buffalo Soldier, right? We've been through a lot together. Fighting on arrival, fighting for survival. If you know the song, right? So this is 1 in 5. This is 1 in 5. Only 5 of these plates are made because she's that special to me, right? So this is from me to you.
I'm angry at you.
So thank you for being my friend. Appreciate it. All right.
Be sick.
Now we can get the hoo-ha video so we can stop
Right.
crying.
Yeah. Please be seated.
Right. The floor is yours.
Could y'all play the video? Thank you. Okay. All right.